Hi, welcome to the second video on the Firebrand channel. I wanted to spend this video doing a little bit of getting acquainted with Russell Brand. So Russell Brand's one of the key figures for this channel, certainly at the beginning, at least. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over Russell Brand. I'm not going to give a history and sort of how or why he got where he is. If you want one of those, there's an excellent video by Media Matters. I strongly recommend that video. It's a good basic grounding in how and why he got where he is. I, however, just want to look at who he is today and what I expect from him when I watch his videos. So one thing that I like to do when I'm engaging with media from somebody is to consider what I would expect from them, because it tells me something about my accuracy in predicting them, tells me something about my understanding of them and their motivations. So with Russell Brand, the things I know about Russell Brand that I would say influence his positions during his broadcasts are primarily where he gets his money from, which is why I have this Wikipedia page loaded up. This is just a Wikipedia page for Rumble. You'll see that Brand does a lot of streaming on Rumble. In fact, he promotes it at every opportunity. He says that he does this because of freedom of expression, which may or may not be true. I realize that he does a lot of the kind of speech that might be restricted in some ways on YouTube. Some of it might be. I don't think that this is really the whole picture, though, because the amount of revenue one can generate from YouTube is a lot greater than the amount of revenue that you can get from Rumble. However, he is signed to Rumble. I think it's a fairly open secret that Russell Brand has a contract with Rumble, and his behavior certainly suggests this as well. But if we look at Rumble and where he gets his money from his Rumble contract, and an undisclosed amount which must run into the millions of dollars, Rumble is a media streaming company started with venture capital from Peter Thiel, who is a tech billionaire. I don't know whether you're familiar with Peter Thiel. He is a German-American tech billionaire, co-founder of PayPal, etc., etc. So yeah, a billionaire. Another billionaire, Vivek Ramaswamy, this time a pharmaceutical billionaire. For those unfamiliar with American politics, he was until recently running for leadership of the Republican Party. So he is a right-wing billionaire. It was a really strange spectacle watching him run for president, because he was so incredibly complimentary. He didn't have one negative word to say about Donald Trump, and really, it was obvious that he was running for president just so he could be Trump's VP. For example, he dropped out of one of the ballots because Trump was not on it. He was threatened. Well, Colorado has tried to remove him from the president ballot, and so Vivek said he would not run in there as well, which is, virtually unheard of, to remove yourself voluntarily from a ballot because one of your opponents has been removed. Anywho's, so I mean, this is the Republican Senator James Vance as well. It's a very right-wing group, which after its initiation then became quite associated with Trump Media. So you can see the Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG, announced that it's entering into a wide-ranging technology and cloud services agreement with Rumble, and in a statement also stated that Rumble would operate as part of Truth Social as well as the Trump Media Group. So it's part of the Trump Media Group. So I expect Russell Brand to be promoting Trump's priorities, i.e., I expect Brand will steer heavily away from criticizing Trump. Where he does criticize Trump, I would not expect him to do so in isolation. I would expect him to, for example, equivocate, to create false equivalences, and do what he can to slant his media against Trump. That's just an expectation. Some broadcasters manage to stay away from being biased, at least biased too heavily or biased at all, from the people who finance them. I mean, John Oliver is a great example of this. Less common in right-wing circles to do so. I mean, that's really what you're being paid for. But Rumble itself, being a right-wing platform owned by Trump, I would expect him to attack Democrats, to steer away from attacking Trump, and I would imagine, therefore, that his discussions will be they'll be centered on Trump's priorities. That would be Russia. Russia is heavily associated with Trump. For example, during the 2016 elections, Trump publicly on TV asked for Russian assistance in finding dirt on his opponents. There was all sorts of associations with him receiving money from oligarchs in Russia. So I would expect him to for example, in the conflict, to side with Russia, or at least to try and take some heat off Russia, because that is exactly what Trump will be prioritizing as well. But anything that's in alignment with Trump's priorities, I would expect for him to push. Okay, so those are his priorities. I wanted to look a little bit as well at some of the techniques that he uses, and I guess how he considers himself. I nearly spat my tea out yesterday when I heard in one of the videos that I was watching Russell Brand refer to himself as a journalist. It's absolutely astounding. Normally he refers to himself as a political commentator, which I think is much more accurate, and certainly, regardless of how he sees himself, he most definitely is not a journalist. I have prepared some videos that demonstrate some of the things that I'm talking about. So I'm going to start off with the first one, and here is a video demonstrating his lack of research, really, because a journalist is more than just political commentary. Journalists should research and evidence, and here is a short exchange, one of many, where Brand indicates that he is either not concerned with research, or he is deliberately editing it out. Let's have a look at this video.
Now let's speak about Elliot Page more specifically. So the first thing I'd like to bring up is the fact that in the UK, the Tavistock Clinic was recently closed. And that was the biggest clinic doing gender transformation surgery that operated in the British world. 1,000 of the 19,000 kids have now launched a lawsuit for medical malpractice. And when Elliot...
Okay, so for framing, Russell Brand is interviewing Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson is making this statement. He showed briefly a website that this is based on.
Page went online and showed off his or her new chest. She or he got 1.7 million Instagram likes. So then the question is, okay, compassion. Well, I think Elliot Page stepped over the line from victim to perpetrator, because when girls hit puberty, their negative emotion spikes and they develop bodily image problems, because neurotic and that would be negative emotional experience for women is extremely tightly tied to body image. And so if you're a girl who is undergoing the hormonal changes that are going to elevate your negative emotion, which is what happens at puberty, you're going to be focused on body image. And if you're an unpopular girl and you're awkward socially, the probability that you're going to think something's wrong with your body is almost 100% if you're female.
So I can see what makes you angry about it. It's your analysis and it's your opinion that it's a powerful influencer and it's going to lead people to make decisions that are going to be detrimental to their lives. But the evident and palpable anger, I feel, diminishes your position because now anger is in the conversation. I think you offer a great deal that is valuable and necessary, but I feel beyond the value and necessity of honesty, authenticity, and information that is underwritten by data and experience, I feel that it creates more opposition.
Okay, that was important. He emphasized the basis of Jordan's position on data collected and experience. Okay.
Position to approach a matter like this in the manner that you have done. What are we going to anchor ourselves to ultimately, Jordan, navigating this space? Are we going to be participants in creating more and more ossified and oppositional camps, or are we going to create cartilage between us so that we can move between the room that Jordan Peterson is in and a room that Elliot Page is in and say, look, I believe in love, and I know it's complicated. I think you're beautiful and full of love. I really believe in that. And then when I sort of hear people being
I can't say that I agree, especially given Jordan Peterson's propensity to insult people, the kind of people that he should have as a client, people insulting women for their body weight, insulting trans people for their identities. Anywho's.
Dismissive of you, it upsets me. And I see how you arm them. I feel that you arm them by sort of, in their language, dead naming Elliot Page. And I feel like why would you do that? It isn't necessary. Of course, it's the statistics you've cited about the Tavistock Clinic appear to speak for themselves.
Do they? So when I first found this, I thought that, I heard that and I thought, well, that is certainly a startling revelation. And so I, being a critical thinker, I had a look to see if I could find if I could find this document. And so I looked it up. Now it was difficult to identify. Let's have a look. Eleanor Hayward. Let's have a look at this. Eleanor Hayward, Tavistock Gender Clinic. Okay, let's see if we can find this now. Let's put our webpage back on and let's have a little look. Eleanor Hayward from the Times, Tavistock. Now, this is something that that a lot of people should do when they see things like this. Oh, okay, that's a little unusual. Let's see if we can find the article. Okay, so this is the same article. I think we can agree that this is the same article. The one that Jordan Peterson just listed as showing 1,000 people suing the gender clinic, and you'll find that actually the article says nothing of the sort. How do I continue reading? I cannot read this from here. Let me see if I can select any of it, which I cannot without paying in. Enjoy a free trial. See if we can find a different copy of it. Okay, here it is. The Tavistock Gender Clinic is facing massive legal action from youngers. Okay. Lawyers expect about 1,000 families to join medical negligence lawsuits alleging vulnerable. So this was. It turns out, if you read the story, there's actually no families come forward at all. There was a law firm who decided to try and instigate basically a class action lawsuit against the Tavistock, and they estimated themselves, without any particular reason for doing so, that there would be 1,000 families come forward. I continued to look at this, and there had been no evidence. In fact, at the time that I last researched this a few months ago, the Tavistock had not a single complaint levied at it as an NHS complaint, and none of the law firms had stated that they'd found a single family willing to sue them. So this was completely misrepresented, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in some of the other videos, but it's a clear demonstration that Russell Brand is not a journalist. He doesn't do any research. His opinions only, and he is presenting other people's opinions as facts. That's rather disturbing for me, and you might have also noticed in the video his propensity to speak at pace. He tends to, another technique that he uses is to speak at pace to avoid consideration, and he does so in these sort of prepared diatribes where he uses lots of unusual words. He is as garrulous as he is loquacious, or what's the saying? He's intoxicated by the exuberance of his own verbosity. He delights in memorizing short phrases with unusual words that he can throw into conversation that make him sound more intelligent. I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos of him doing that. So that's one technique that he uses. Let's have a look at some of the others. So let's move along from this one. Another technique that he uses, and this is super common in I guess those who don't like logical consistency. They like ambiguity, and one of the main things that people who like this kind of ambiguity use is an intangible and vague, never defined, ethereal they. So they'll often refer to a they, and they'll never really define who this they is. Here's an example.
Increasingly, from the pandemic period onward in particular, we're invited to believe that we're somehow not capable of making decisions for ourselves. We're regarded as idiots or children. And when an outlier like Tucker Carlson, facilitated by Elon Musk, it grants us the opportunity to watch for ourselves a conversation like this, they're terrified, because they're terrified that you might become disobedient, that you might not regard this as a simple matter of Ukraine are goodies, Putin is a bad...
So they are terrified that you might become disobedient. Now, in this case, maybe you think that you know who they is. Who's they? Is he talking about the mainstream media? Is he talking about the government? They'll often use this they and not define who they is. And I think that allows them to sort of attribute a lot of motivations, a lot of actions to this they that people sort of project sort of collective negativity onto, and it evades proper interrogation because you don't really know who they is, and each time you consider the they shift slightly. And so that's a technique that we'll see in some of the videos that we watch, and one to look out for. Let's have a look at the next the next technique that I wanted to have a look at, and that's interrupting and misdirection. So that starts here.
It's not about Barack Obama's race. That's about Barack Obama's affinity with globalist financial interests. This is brilliant framing designed to stop us even questioning the legitimacy of Tucker going to Russia to have a conversation with Putin.
In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here.
The man you see here criminalizing it as if Tucker Carlson's being observed from a hedge through binoculars. There he is, look, at a public event.
Okay, the interjection there kind of broke the flow of the point that the newsreader was trying to make. And you'll see him do this. He'll kind of interject without a real good point to make, and he'll often do it to break up the point. It really stops somebody from making coherent and punchy argument if they're being interrupted. You'll see that used consistently in debates. less so in this kind of situation, which is why it stands out more. Because if you create your own show, you have absolute control over how and when people speak. I mean, people do stop and start videos, but this kind of little interjections is something that he uses very regularly and very effectively. I mean, particularly in this case, I mean, look, what she said, the person you see in this picture, that didn't make him sound like she was intimating that he was a criminal by looking at this picture. I mean, if you were to listen to it, consider the statement without his interjection. Let's listen to it again and see whether you think, if you'd have listened to it without this suggestion, that you'd think, oh, well, that was phrased like that to make him sound like a criminal.
The legitimacy of Tucker going to Russia to have a conversation with Putin.
In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here.
The man you see
obviously, that didn't sound like she was
here criminalizing it.
Did she sound like she was criminalizing him being in that picture? Really, she didn't. And that brings me on to my next point, which is about misdirection, I guess, and his sort of false framing, leading phrasings. So let's have a look at another example. So that was one example. Let's have a look at another.
And most of all, what I feel is emerging from this is we cannot trust the legacy media. We cannot trust the people that want to perpetuate this war. Perhaps you might conclude also you cannot trust Vladimir Putin, but...
Okay, now see, these things, he uses them as small statements that you wouldn't necessarily stop to pick up on, but these small sort of throwaway phrases where he says the one thing that really stands out is that we can't trust our media. Okay, I mean, like, that's not a statement that I necessarily disagree with. I think we should all be aware of the biases caused by corporate buyout of the people's media. But then he says, perhaps you wouldn't trust Putin either. I'm sorry. So the one thing you can really take away is that we definitely cannot trust our media. But maybe we can't trust Putin. Let's just listen to that back again, because it's a kind of small throwaway phrase that would be really easy to lose.
In the history and the future of different ethnic groups that might have all sorts of alliances and all sorts of spats. And most of all, what I feel is emerging from this is we cannot trust the legacy media. We cannot trust the people that want to perpetuate this war. Perhaps you might conclude also you cannot trust Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, so perhaps you can't trust Vladimir Putin, but the one thing that really stands out is we can't trust our media. Now, I think that has set up a false framing of the narratives, and it's really easy to watch these types of media and to come away with a more negative opinion of somebody and a more positive opinion based on the repetition of these small framings, and Brand is very good at this. Let's have a look at another example.
What exactly is your individual personal beef with Russia? And
okay, there we go. So the way he sets this question up is for you to ask what your personal individual beef is with Russia. Well, hang on. Our participation in the funding of allied forces, or our consideration of the actions we take as a society, as what we expect our government to do, should not come down to whether I personally have a beef with Russia. I've got no personal beef with Russia. It doesn't mean that I should accept their propaganda uncritically. And I know Russell Brand is very keen for us to do this. He goes on saying, well, Putin says he's not going to invade anywhere. So, let's just, there you go. So that's what he says. That's fine. But, boiling it down to whether I personally have a beef with Russia is a false framing. It's not about whether any one individual has a problem with Russia. You know, I could have absolutely no personal beef with Russia, but I could, however, be very concerned about Russia's expansionist actions. You know, I could have various other reasons which are not on the basis of whether I personally have a beef with Russia. In fact, whether I personally have a beef with Russia is probably one of the least relevant things at all in determining whether I think there should be any form of support for an allied country abroad. So he uses these questions, which might sound logical if you were to listen to them quickly and not think about them. You know, what's my personal beef with Russia, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, if you were to not think about it on a surface level, it makes sense. But if you slow it down and think about it, it really shows the false framing. And that's one of the reasons why Russell Brand seems to talk so fast and use a kind of unusual eloquence and infrequently used words in order to try and slightly befuddle his listener. A good orator who wants to be understood will slow down, add pauses, and give you opportunity to think about the information that you've been provided. Russell Brand doesn't do that. So those are some of the things that I see when I watch Russell Brand videos, some of the things that I consider, and I wanted to go through some of them so that we could have I guess a good starting point, so that when we start to watch videos, I can kind of look to see whether any of those things are appearing. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.